opposition parties. The House of Representatives is the lower house of the bicameral parliament of the Netherlands. The States-General, the other one being the Senate. It has 150 seats, which are filled through elections using a party list proportional representation. It sits in the Binnenhof in The Hague. Although this body is officially called the House of Representatives in English, this is not a direct translation of its official Dutch name. The second chamber of the States-General, second chamber, or more colloquially just the chamber, rather than representatives. Members of the House are referred to as Tweede Kamerlid. The House of Representatives is the main legislative body of the States-General, where discussion of proposed legislation and review of the actions of the cabinet takes place. Both the cabinet and the House of Representatives itself have the right to propose legislation. The House of Representatives discusses it and, if adopted by a majority, sends it on to the Senate. Review of the actions of the cabinet takes the form of formal interrogations, which may result in motions urging the cabinet to take, or refrain from, certain actions. No individual may be a member of both Parliament and Cabinet, except in a caretaker cabinet that has not yet been succeeded when a new house is sworn in. The House of Representatives is also responsible for the first round of selection for judges to the Supreme Court of the Netherlands. It submits a list of 3 names for every vacant position to the government. Furthermore, it elects the Dutch Ombudsman and their subsidiaries. The normal term of the House of Representatives is 4 years. Elections are called when the government loses Parliament's confidence. The governing coalition breaks down. The term of the House of Representatives expires or when no governing coalition can be formed. Anybody eligible to vote in the Netherlands also has the right to establish a political party and contest elections for the House of Representatives. Parties wanting to take part must register 43 days before the elections, supplying a nationwide list of at most 50 candidates. Parties that do not have any sitting candidates in the House of Representatives must also pay a deposit and provide 30 signatures of support from residents of each of the 20 electoral districts in which they want to collect votes. The candidate lists are placed in the hands of the voters at least 14 days before the election. Each candidate list is numbered, with the person in the first position known as the lijsttrekker. The lijsttrekker is usually appointed by the party to lead its election campaign, and is almost always the party's political leader and candidate for prime minister. Parties may choose to compete with different candidate lists in each of the 20 electoral districts. But as seats are allocated on national rather than district level, most parties have almost identical lists in all districts with candidates running nationwide. Only large parties usually have some regional candidates at the bottom of their lists. From 1973 until abolition in June 2017, it was possible for 2 or more parties to combine their separate lists to increase the chance of winning a remainder seat. This was known as a list combination, or lijstverbinding, lidsencombinatie. Citizens of the Kingdom of the Netherlands aged 18 or over have the right to vote, with the exception of 1. Prisoners serving a term of more than 1 year, 2. Those who have been declared incapable by court because of insanity, 3. Residents of Aruba, Curaçao and Sint Maarten, unless they have spent 10 years residing in the Netherlands or work for the Dutch civil service. Eligible citizens resident in the Netherlands are able to vote if they are registered on a municipal population register. Eligible citizens outside the Netherlands can permanently register to vote at the municipality of The Hague, provided they have a current Dutch passport or identity card. A single vote can be placed on any one candidate. Many voters select one of the lijsttrekkers. But alternatively a preference vote may be made for a candidate lower down the list once the election results are known. The seats are allocated to the parties. The number of valid national votes cast is divided by 150. The number of seats available. To give a threshold for each seat. 1/150th is approximately 0.67% of the valid votes. Each party's number of votes is divided by this threshold and rounded down to the nearest whole number to give an initial number of seats equal to the number of times the threshold was reached. Any party that received fewer votes than the threshold fails to gain representation in the House of Representatives. After the initial seats are allocated, the remainder seats are allocated among the parties that received at least one seat. Using the D'Hondt method of largest averages, this system slightly favors the larger parties, since parties that rake